Getting caught cheating was bad, but my ex making it into a viral hit ruined me. I won't be mentioning my names for privacy's sake. I, 23F, grew up in a small town about 40 minutes outside Columbus, Ohio. It's one of those places where everyone knows each other. Most people marry their high school sweetheart, and the biggest thing to do on weekends is hit the same 2 bars. I always knew I wanted something different. Around 2021, I started posting online. Just casual stuff at first, but over time I built a following. By last year, I was finally starting to take content creation seriously. I wasn't making crazy money, but I was networking, traveling for little collabs, and beginning to see a future in it. My ex, 25M, Ethan, was the opposite of me in pretty much every way. He worked a corporate 9-5 at a finance company in the city. He was private, low-key, and had zero interest in social media beyond scrolling memes and checking in on sports. We had been together for about 3 years, and for most of it he was supportive in his own way. He came with me to events, helped me film sometimes, and was patient when I was up editing until 2 a.m. But here's where things started to shift. Ethan never liked how many guy friends I had, or how much time I spent on content trips. To him, these trips just looked like excuses to hang out with dudes, party, and call it work. To me, they were the only way to grow in this industry. I kept telling him, "You don't get it. This is how things work. Collabs, networking, being social." I think he tried to understand, but he's the kind of person who thrives on stability and routine. He wanted a girlfriend who came home at 6, watched Netflix, and maybe talked about marriage in a couple years. Instead, he got me as a GEF who was chasing opportunities, surrounded by people he didn't trust, and constantly on my phone. We'd fight about it sometimes, but I usually brushed it off as him being paranoid. I thought if he loved me, he'd just trust me. If I'm being honest, I was also starting to feel like he was holding me back. At that point, I told myself we were just different people at different stages of life. So earlier this year, I got invited on what people in that space call a creator trip. Basically, a bunch of small and mid-sized creators rent out a house together, make content, collab on stuff, and try to grow their reach. This one was in Nashville, nothing crazy glamorous, but for me it felt like a big deal because it was the first time people were actually including me in something like that. When I first told Ethan, he immediately tensed up. He asked a lot of questions: who organized it, how many people were going, where we'd be staying, if it was mixed guys and girls. I didn't have neat answers for all of it, which only made him more skeptical. I could tell right away he wasn't into the idea. We had a few arguments in the weeks leading up to it. His main point was that I didn't know these people outside of Instagram Discord, and he didn't feel comfortable with me flying out, staying in some Airbnb with a bunch of strangers, and calling it work. He kept saying things like, "It doesn't feel like networking, it feels like a party." My side was that this was how creators broke into the industry, by showing up, getting content, and putting themselves out there. I even said to him at one point, "If you can't support this, you don't understand what I'm trying to build." Looking back, that probably stung more than I realized. When I actually left for Nashville, the mood between us was off. He hugged me at the airport, but it was stiff, like he was holding something back. I brushed it off and told myself he was just being dramatic. Once I got there, I fell into the trip bubble right away. The group was loud, outgoing, constantly filming TikToks and IG stories, and always planning the next collab. I didn't really have time to sit around and text like I usually did. Ethan would call in the evenings, and I'd be in the middle of group dinners or editing with people. I'd either let it ring or answer but sound distracted. A couple of times he flat out said, "You don't sound like yourself. You seem really distant." I just laughed it off and said, "I'm just tired. I've been filming all day." The truth is, I kind of liked not being glued to my phone that weekend. It felt freeing in a way, like I was finally around people who got me. Ethan's calls started feeling more like a chore than something I looked forward to, and I hate admitting that now. I don't know how to explain this without sounding like the worst person alive, but I'll just say it straight. I got caught up in the vibe of the trip. There was this one guy there, I'll call him Matt. He was another creator, a bit older than me, and honestly the complete opposite of Ethan. He was tall, fit, dressed like he'd just walked out of a lookbook. Definitely more of a model type, compared to my ex, who's corporate and low-key. He carried himself with a kind of confidence that made people automatically pay attention. We'd collab on little reels and skits during the day, and I'd catch myself laughing more than I should or watching the clips back just to see him. I told myself it was just normal networking, just part of being in that scene, but deep down I knew I had a crush. The nights in Nashville all kind of blurred together. We'd brunch with bottomless mimosas, then go out again at night for drinks. The Airbnb was full of music, cameras, people half working/half partying, and it felt like this little bubble where the outside world didn't exist. That included Ethan. One night, after too many vodka shots, I was sitting on the couch scrolling through TikTok drafts with Matt. He leaned in close to show me something. I laughed too hard, and then we kissed. It wasn't just a quick thing either. It turned into a full-on makeout, and in that moment, I didn't stop it. I told myself it was just fun and part of the whole influencer trip life. Like if I didn't go along with it, I was somehow missing out. The next morning, I tried to brush it off and act normal. Ethan called while I was still groggy and hungover, and I just said I was tired from filming all night. But I already knew I'd crossed a line I couldn't take back. When I got back from Nashville, Ethan felt different. Not loud or dramatic, just quieter than usual. Normally, he'd ask me about every little detail when I came back from a trip, where we went, who I met, how the content turned out. But this time, he barely asked. He made dinner, we ate, watched something on Netflix, and he went to bed early. I thought maybe he was pouting because of how distant I'd been during the trip, but I didn't push it. Honestly, part of me was relieved he wasn't grilling me with questions. The next day, he asked if we could talk after work. My stomach immediately sank. If you've ever been in a long relationship, you know that tone. The way they say it so calm, almost too calm, and you know something's coming. We sat down in the living room. He pulled out his phone and opened his photos. My chest was pounding so hard I could barely breathe. He turned the screen toward me. It was a mirror selfie from the trip. Me and Matt. His arm around me, his hand on my chest in a way you couldn't mistake. I remember the exact moment it was taken. We were in the Airbnb bathroom. People were laughing. Music was blasting, and it felt funny in the moment to post something cheeky. I thought nothing of it at the time, just another influencer trip thing. I laughed nervously and tried to brush it off. That's nothing, babe. People do stuff like that all the time now. It doesn't mean anything. It was just a joke. Ethan didn't say anything. He just looked at me, his face completely blank, and then swiped to the next photo. My blood went cold. It was me and Matt on a rooftop after one of the events, very clearly making out. Not a peck, not some angle you could lie about. An actual kiss, my hands in his hair. His arm around my waist. I just froze. My mind went blank. I opened my mouth and all that came out was, "It wasn't serious." Ethan's voice didn't even crack. He just said, "So when I asked you if anything happened, and you swore up and down that I was being paranoid, this is what you were talking about?" I tried to scramble, saying it was just the alcohol, that it was nothing, that it wasn't like I was sneaking around for months. But hearing myself out loud, I knew how pathetic it sounded. He shook his head, leaned back on the couch, and just stared at me like he didn't even recognize me. He said, "You lied straight to my face. I gave you every chance to be honest, and you gaslit me instead." I started crying, saying I didn't want to lose him, that I messed up, that I thought it was harmless at the time. He didn't yell. He didn't get up and slam doors. He just said one thing, "Pack your stuff, you can't stay here tonight." And that was it. After 3 years together, the whole thing ended in one conversation. I begged him to at least talk more in the morning, but he just kept repeating it. "Pack your things." I left that night with a half-zipped suitcase, crashing on a friend's couch, trying to process how fast it all unraveled. After I moved out, I didn't really post much for a few days. I was still active on stories, but people noticed right away that Ethan wasn't around. Every time I'd put up a selfie or a TikTok, the comments would be like, "Where's Ethan?" or "Why aren't you guys together?" Which honestly got annoying because before all this, I posted him a lot. My manager told me straight up that if I didn't address it, it was just going to keep distracting people and hurting engagement. So we decided the best thing was to do a sit-down video. Nothing dramatic, just "We broke up, I'm sad but I'm moving forward." I cried a little on camera, talked about how I'd been having panic attacks and said it was the worst phase of my life. I also framed it in a way that made me look like I was the one being held back. said things like, "It's really sad when men can't handle women chasing their dreams," and made it sound like he just couldn't support me. I didn't come out and say, "Ethan did this or that," but I dropped little breadcrumbs. Like I vaguely hinted that he'd been distracted and talking to other girls while we were together. Nothing specific, just enough to plant doubt for anyone watching. And it worked. People were sympathetic. That video did better than anything else I'd posted in weeks. After that, I leaned into the whole single baddie vibe. I'd post more going out pics, more glam looks, more independent woman captions. I never mentioned Ethan directly, but I threw in little lines here and there that people definitely picked up on. Like during a lipstick collab, I joked, "At least this one actually lasts longer than my ex," and the comments blew up. Or I'd post a mirror selfie and caption it, "Shining without anyone holding me back." At that point, it felt less like I was processing a breakup and more like I was running with a brand. The shade, the little digs, even the vague hints about Ethan, it all kept my name in circulation. A couple weeks after my breakup video went up, he texted me. It wasn't angry or messy, it was just straight to the point. He said something like, "Stop dragging me into your content. I don't want to be part of this narrative you're creating." I left him on read for a while and eventually replied with, "It's not that deep. This is literally part of my brand now." To me it felt harmless, like it's just jokes, shade, captions. But from his side, he clearly felt like I was painting him as some villain. When I didn't stop, he actually reached out to my agency. I didn't even know until my manager called me and told me Ethan had sent this long email asking them to step in. He basically said I was misrepresenting him, that I was hinting at things that weren't true, and that he just wanted me to move on without making him part of my content. My manager laughed about it when she told me. She literally said, "He should be grateful you're even talking about him. If anything, this gives him more relevance than he ever had." And the agency didn't push me to stop. If anything, they told me to lean into it. "Controversy drives engagement," they said. So I did. I kept going. I'd post thirst traps with captions like, "Imagine losing this because you were insecure," or little digs like, "This lipstick lasts longer than my ex did." Nothing was explicit, but everyone who followed me knew exactly who I was shading. Meanwhile, Ethan just stayed quiet. He didn't post about me, didn't comment, nothing. Which, to be honest, made it easier for me to keep spinning the story. People assumed silence meant guilt. If he wasn't defending himself, it looked like he had something to hide. At that point, I wasn't even thinking about Ethan as a person anymore. He was just part of my storyline, part of the brand. My breakup video had done numbers, my engagement was higher than it had been in months, and the shade posts were performing. I told myself it was just business, but behind the scenes, he clearly wasn't okay with it. He sent me another message, this one a lot more blunt, saying I was straight up lying and that if I kept pushing the "he was talking to other girls" angle, he'd show proof I was the one who cheated. That text hit different. I didn't reply, but it was the first time I felt like maybe I'd pushed too far. About a month after all the breakup talk had cooled down a little, Ethan dropped a song. He doesn't make music full-time or anything, but he's always been into it, writing, playing guitar, recording small things for fun. I didn't think much of it at first. Honestly, I rolled my eyes when I saw people tagging me under the TikToks like, "Sadie, is this about you?" At first, it was just background noise. The song wasn't a diss track with names or anything, but it was obvious enough. One line that got clipped all over TikTok was, "Didn't even falter when I asked if it was true. Called me paranoid while he had his hands on you. 3 years of love and all I get's a trending sound." It stung because people connected the dots right away. My breakup video had framed Ethan as the insecure boyfriend who couldn't handle me chasing my dreams. And now he was countering with lyrics that sounded a lot like, "Actually, she cheated." The song started picking up traction. Not viral overnight, but slow burn viral. TikTok edits, people using it in videos, comments under my posts saying stuff like, "So this is the ex you were shading?" My management told me to ignore it, not to give it free promo. But then things got messier. One of Ethan's close friends, I'll call him Jake, posted on his private story, except it wasn't that private because screenshots started spreading everywhere. He put up pictures, actual pictures of me with the influencer from the trip. It was the same pictures Ethan confronted me with. Jake wrote something like, Y'all still think Ethan made this up? I was the one who showed him the pics. That post got out fast. Friends from both sides started chiming in. People I hadn't talked to in forever were messaging me like, "Yo, this is everywhere. You might want to say something." Suddenly, the narrative I had been controlling, that Ethan was the insecure one, the controlling one, was slipping. People were commenting under my brand deals like, "So is this lipstick the one that lasted longer than your ex, or the one you wore when you cheated on him?" Brutal stuff. And because Ethan himself hadn't said anything directly, outside of the song, the screenshots from his friend hit harder. It made him look like the quiet, hurt guy who finally got vindicated when his friends had enough. And me? I looked like the liar doubling down for content. Ethan's song didn't just do well, it blew up. I underestimated how far it would reach. At first, it was a handful of people using it for TikTok edits, but then it started snowballing into a full-on breakup anthem. Girls were lip-syncing to the lyrics. Guys were stitching it to make fun of their exes, and before I knew it, I couldn't scroll without hearing his voice. And the worst part? It wasn't just viral in his little circle. It became a trend. Instagram reels, TikTok sounds, even those moody Spotify playlists. It's like the song detached from him and turned into the soundtrack for anyone who had been cheated on or screwed over. Meanwhile, my own brand was technically growing. Numbers-wise, I was up. Followers, engagement, all of it. But the comments were ugly. It wasn't just cute fit or love this makeup look anymore. It was, "Sis, you're the villain and you know it." Not her promoting lip gloss when she couldn't even keep her mouth to herself. Even on unrelated posts, people dragged me. I'd post an OOTD and someone would reply, "3 years of love and all he gets is a trending sound." They quoted his lyrics back at me constantly. I tried leaning into it, acting unbothered. My management even spun it as an opportunity. "If they're going to call you the baddie from the song, then own it," they said. So I did. I posted thirst traps, leaned into sarcasm, captioned one pic with "At least I made history" when the sound hit 1,000,000 uses. Outwardly, I doubled down, but privately, I was exhausted. It felt like every time the sound trended again, I had to relive it, like ripping open a wound I was trying to cover. I'd be sitting at brunch, trying to relax, and suddenly the table next to me would play his song on their phone. Or I'd open Instagram and see someone from my hometown, people who knew us personally, using it in their stories with a not-so-subtle jab. It didn't help that Ethan stayed silent. He never did a tell-all, never mentioned me by name, never clapped back at my content. That made him look even better. Like the quiet, heartbroken artist who turned his pain into art, while I looked like the bitter ex capitalizing on chaos. The contrast was brutal. I started noticing the shift in how brands treated me too. They didn't drop me outright, but I could sense hesitation. Campaign briefs came with reminders like, "Keep comments turned on. We want to gauge organic engagement." Translation: they were watching how toxic my replies were. One even asked me to avoid addressing drama in deliverables, which stung because I hadn't even planned to, but it showed they saw me as risky. And honestly, I felt like I couldn't escape being the girl from the song. That became my label. Not the influencer who built her own audience, not the girl with quirky makeup tutorials or funny reels, just the ex who cheated. At night, when everything slowed down, I'd scroll through comments under Ethan's song, people writing paragraphs about how it helped them through heartbreak. Some even thanked him for finally telling their story, and all I could think was, damn, this is what I'll always be tied to now. It's a weird headspace to be in, publicly pretending you're thriving, posting confident captions, sipping cocktails and reels like you're unbothered, but privately feeling drained and low-key humiliated. Like you lost control of your own story, and every time you try to redirect it, it just boomerangs back to that song. Update. It's been a few months since Ethan's song went viral, and honestly, I thought the hype would die down by now. It hasn't. Every time I post, there's at least one comment dragging up the lyrics. I've started deleting some, but it's like playing whack-a-mole. I tried shifting my content to more lifestyle/day-in-my-life stuff instead of just makeup, hoping to redirect the narrative. Some people are receptive, but most just see me as that girl from the song. The hardest part is running into it offline. I was at the gym last week and someone had it on their playlist. I literally froze mid-set. It's insane how something that started as a breakup now follows me everywhere. I keep telling myself to just ride it out, but privately it's draining. I don't even hate Ethan. I just wish people would let me move on without making me the villain of their TikTok edits forever.